Hello guys, this is Dark Fox Sage 2 and we are back with our new fanfic, which is What If Naruto and Uno Were Part of a Same Team Part 2. And if you enjoy this fanfic, then please press the like button and please subscribe to the channel. It motivates me to upload more fanfic like these for you all. Now let's start the fanfiction. After getting bored with the monotony of just going through taijutsu katas for hours, Naruto headed back into town. The cuts he had suffered from his little scuffle were steadily healing, but he still had to head home to grab some bandages, making him look like he had lost a fight. He basically had, but he still didn't like looking like he did in public. He simply kept to himself and wandered about, thinking on what he had done today. Tenten kicked my ass, all those Kage Bunshin were useless when it came to getting close to her. She was really good with those weapons. I almost got her though, after I did that trick with Henge. Huh, so that's what Iruka-sensei meant by my brain is my most dangerous weapon. Naruto's wandering had taken him from the business and residential districts of Konoha he normally found himself frequenting and brought him over to the side of the village that was more focused on military matters. He hadn't been here much because there was never really any need to do anything except go and hang out with the Sandaime Hokage for a bit. That actually didn't sound like a half-bad idea come to think of it. With a new course of action set in his mind, Naruto headed towards the Hokage Tower where once he arrived, the guards gave him a cautious look. He got that look more often than not, but in this case he figured they had some reason to look at him like that. He had just broken in 2 days ago and stolen a scroll full of village secrets. As he headed towards the office he greeted the pretty secretary that let him go inside where he found the old Kage sitting at his desk with a lit pipe in hand. You shouldn't smoke that stuff, Sarutobi Gigi. You're already old enough. Don't let the smoke kill you faster. The old man chuckled at Naruto and put his pipe out for the boy's benefit. Naruto-kun. What can I do for you today? He then got a good look at his face. What on earth happened to you? Naruto grinned awkwardly. I kind of got into a fight with an older genin a little while ago. The old man frowned disapprovingly. You shouldn't be picking fights with your comrades, Naruto-kun. You should know better than that. I'm disappointed. Naruto looked down ashamedly. He didn't even bother telling him that Tenten more or less started it as he didn't think that would go over so well as an excuse even if he had. I'm sorry Gigi. I learned a lesson though. She kind of handed me my ass for most of it. Hiruzen's mood improved and he let out another aged chuckle. Well, you are just a fresh genin, Naruto. She's been at this for at least a year if she's older than you from the way you sound. A year of hard training and field experience while you were still in the academy makes her a better shinobi just out of principle. About the academy, Naruto figured he might as well ask while it was fresh on his brain before he forgot. I was going over some stuff about the academy taijutsu. All it had was the basic stuff, and the only thing it said on anything else was something I didn't even had. I checked later and I couldn't find it. Something about advanced grappling knowledge, but I don't have anything on that. The old man stood up and rested his hand on Naruto's shoulder as he led him out of his office. I'll show you this now since you're a shinobi now, Naruto-kun, come with me. The Sandaime Hokage led Naruto out to the roof of the tower where he proceeded to use Shunshin no Jutsu, body flicker jutsu, to take them to a building at the top of the Hokage monument. Naruto looked at Sarutobi who started walking ahead of Naruto towards the building. Can you teach me how to do that, Gigi? Naruto asked excitedly. Maybe you can teach it to yourself, Naruto-kun. The Hokage motioned for Naruto to catch up with him. After the boy caught up, he proceeded to open a massive set of double doors. Behind the set of doors lay a massive room with row after row of books and scrolls. Where are we, Sarutobi Gigi? Naruto wondered. He had never been anywhere near this place before. When he went to the top of the Hokage monument, all he ever did was go to look off over the edge at the village. Hiruzen smiled. This is the Konoha Archive Library. Located here is tons of information on things like village history, ninja both past and current, and all sorts of other things. Naruto deflated. Ah, I thought this was going to be cool. All this place has are a bunch of musty books and scrolls. Hiruzen shrugged. Oh, I was going to say that I thought a few ninja techniques were here as well, but if you aren't interested, he baited Naruto, and he didn't let him down. Hold on. Naruto stopped Hiruzen. You say that there are all kinds of stuff here like jutsu too, right? There are a few if you actually comb through and look. Hiruzen knew he had him now. Just the prospect at learning a new jutsu had Naruto ready to go. Well then let's get going then. Naruto yelled before a harsh shush sounded out from the man seated at the front desk. A middle-aged man with close-cut black hair and a small, high, ponytail, a goatee, glasses, and a long white jacket, open to show a dark orange shirt and black pants. The man sighed. You can't just yell in the middle of this place, you know. This is a facility for quiet study. Please don't disrupt the shinobi here to work. Naruto blushed and rubbed the back of his head. Sorry Oji-san. It won't happen again. Hiruzen chuckled and patted Naruto on the head. Naruto, this is Akeda Atsuto. He is the head of Konoha's cryptanalysis squad. Wow, Naruto said as he looked at the average-looking man. You must be a really important guy then, huh? I'm just a basic librarian when I'm not needed to work. The man smiled slightly. Hey, a bookworm's good for something in a hidden village after all. Now what can I do for you, Hokage-sama? Hiruzen led Naruto closer to his desk. Well, Uzumaki, Naruto-kun here just graduated and he would like to go through your library to see if he could find something on advanced grappling techniques to bolster his academy taijutsu. And some cool jutsu. Naruto cut in loudly before covering his mouth suddenly. Sorry, I forgot. Atsuto waved it off. It's alright, but I'm kind of iffy on exactly where the volumes on taijutsu are. He looked at Naruto appraising ly. He is a shinobi, isn't he? Yes. He is a recent graduate. Hiruzen assured him. I most certainly wouldn't have brought him if he weren't. He simply neglected to wear his headband today. Isn't that right, Naruto-kun? Naruto was sure there was a lesson in that comment somewhere. It was the second time today that he almost got himself into trouble for not wearing that thing. He just wanted to keep it looking good for orientation. If he had worn it, he would have gotten it all scuffed in his little scrap with Tenten, or it would have gotten all sweaty, or he could have lost it. He was trying to be responsible. Yes, Gigi, Naruto said as if he had just been lightly scolded. Atsuto nodded. All right then, next time make sure you wear it. Only shinobi of Konoha or those with express permission from the Hokage can come in here and examine our archives. Now let me get someone to help you. Shiho. He shouted out into the mostly still library, getting Naruto and Hiruzen to sweat-drop at the hypocrisy. A surprised yelp came before some swift rummaging noises. Seconds later, a girl with blonde hair darker than Naruto's tied back in a ponytail with a red hairband and glasses that looked like swirls were in them where her eyes should have gone on her face came out and stood in front of Atsuto's desk. Her hair had occasional strands sticking up, making her look slightly disheveled. She had on a long dark red dress and a long white coat like Atsuto, only she held her coat together with a black headband worn like a backwards sash around her waist. Yes, sensei. What can I do for you? Shiho said once she had gotten to the front. Atsuto smiled at the girl and turned to Naruto. This is my genin apprentice Shiho. If you'd like, I'm certain she'd help you find anything it is that you are looking for here. Shiho, go ahead and say hello to the Hokage and meet Uzumaki Naruto. The girl turned around and saw Naruto, who gave her a tentative wave. The girl returned it with a smile. Hello Hokage-sama, and hello Uzumaki-kun. I'd be happy to help out. All I was doing before this was just putting back some of the books those other lazy ninja didn't bother with. Speaking of which, did you finish that? Atsuto said with a look that had a dangerous gleam in his eye. Shiho recoiled slightly. I was almost done, but then you called me to meet Uzumaki-kun. Sorry, sensei. The man laughed. It's alright Shiho as long as it gets done before you head home for the day. Now if you would, please help Naruto here get situated. Here's inside. Well, I have to get back to the office and complete my work. Please take good care of Naruto-kun here if you could Shiho-chan. With that the old man bade everyone farewell and returned to the Hokage tower. Atsuto waved for the two youngsters to leave him to his busy work. Now both of you go on and show Naruto what the library has for a young ninja like him. You can finish your work later Shiho. Shiho nodded and motioned for Naruto to follow her into the archives. Come with me please. After they started walking for a bit, Shiho started talking, so this is your first time here? Naruto laughed and placed his hands behind his head. Yeah, I just graduated the other day and Gigi brought me here so I could figure out something that I couldn't find on taijutsu from the academy stuff. Well, the academy taijutsu is more of something that was used as a building block to help keep students in shape and give them a base in learning more advanced styles later. Shiho replied succinctly as they kept walking. Yeah, Naruto said, squinting. Iruka-sensei said that too. Shiho nodded and smiled. Well, you graduated. That's good for you. I graduated last year but I wasn't able to actually become a ninja due to, well, related circumstances. I shouldn't say. Naruto looked at her sorrowfully. Oh, that's terrible. I'm sorry. I'm probably making you feel bad with all of this, aren't I? Shiho waved off his concern. Oh no, don't worry about it. Because of Sensei, I'm still technically an active shinobi and I still do missions from time to time, but I'm here more often than not. It actually might have been the best thing to happen to me. Atsuto Sensei found me after it happened and extended an invitation to be his apprentice in the cryptanalysis squad. I actually liked doing that more than I would have liked being a shinobi. Fighting never really was my strong suit in the academy. I wasn't too good at the practical parts. If I hit you, it would probably feel like a paper bag brushed against your face. She said with a slight laugh as she threw a fake punch at Naruto that brushed against his cheek jokingly. Naruto let out a laugh himself. Hey, you never know. I'm not too good myself. I just got a bit of a beatdown today myself, but it's going to be alright. A Hokage never lets a little setback stop him. Shiho liked this Naruto kid. There weren't too many shinobi around her age heading to the library for her to talk to, and he didn't treat her like a useless nerd so far. It didn't seem to bother him that she wasn't a real ninja at all. You want to be Hokage Uzumaki-kun? Naruto grinned at her. You'd better believe it, Shiho-chan. I'm going to be the best Hokage there ever was. You'll see. Then when you're the head of this department we can run this village, Datbeo. Both of them turned down an aisle as directed by Shiho. That sounds good, just make sure you give me a raise, okay? She said as she trailed her finger along the edges of the books to find her place. Okay, here's a book on basics of shinobi combat. She said as she placed it in his hands. It's a good read and it's pretty helpful. Naruto looked at the book. Essential knowledge on shinobi tactics, styles, and skills. Ah, Shiho-chan, I just wanted the taijutsu scroll on the grappling stuff or some cool looking style so I could see if I could learn it before orientation so that I have more cool moves to show off. Naruto whined. Why are you making me read this? Shiho rolled her eyes. Because all of that stuff you want is all well and good, but if you don't know how or when to use it, then it's not going to help, is it? She questioned. If you did end up getting a new style from out of here and then somehow learned it well enough to use it by orientation, you still wouldn't have any knowledge on what to do with it. Like if you wanted to engage from 100 feet away, how would you get there? Run right at them and hope they stand still and wait for you. Naruto blushed as he realized that little plan of action didn't exactly work out today against Tenten. Okay, he said begrudgingly, I'll read this then, I promise. He gave a defeated sigh as Shiho gave him a victorious smile and a B sign before taking him to a table to sit and read at. Shiho seated him and patted him on the back. Okay Uzumaki-kun. Get started reading this and I'll see if I can find the stuff on taijutsu that you want. She looked back towards the archives and slumped her shoulders. I really wish there was someone else working today other than me and Sensei though, help would be nice. You need help. Naruto vacantly made the seal for his strongest jutsu after cracking the book open with a bored look. I can do that. Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, multiple shadow clone jutsu. A puff of smoke surrounded Naruto and Shiho before revealing a dozen Narutos all looking around blankly. There you go, help Shiho-chan find what she's looking for. I'll just stay here and read. He said distastefully. The clones looked at each other before shrugging. Better to do this than to read, poor boss. The clones thought before one turned to Shiho. Okay Shiho-chan, where do we start? Shiho stared at them in disbelief before poking the one closest to her. They're all real. That move must be so complex. What is he doing here then? He must be a genius or something. The clones all blushed in embarrassment. Actually, we were the dead last this year, but that doesn't mean anything. Shiho nodded. Not if this jutsu you have here has anything to say about it. Now come on, let's go find the real Uzumaki-kun his scrolls. Naruto simply read along while his clones and Shiho went searching through the place for what he asked for. He promised her he would read this and she was a nice enough girl. He didn't want to upset his new friend right after meeting her just because he was too much of a blockhead to try and crack a book for once. A ninja's style is an approach to combat that makes use of that ninja's strengths and talents. It then proceeded to give off a list of different cataloged styles and the direct page number to skip to, something Naruto was thankful for as he didn't have to read the whole thing if he found something he liked. Long range, mid-range, and close-range styles. Remembering how Tenten fought, he flipped to the section on long range. Marksman, that sounds like her alright. Marksman, a style more suited for support than for direct attack. Is most useful in events of surprise attack to take down multiple foes before they can react, weakening an enemy's defenses, and diverting their attention away from the main attack. A marksman's best bet in a fight is to stay at a distance from an opponent to keep out of the enemy's range and safely bombard them with accurate attacks. Good reflexes and impeccable hand-eye coordination are the hallmark of a good marksman. Marksmen are usually weak against wind-type ninjutsu as their weapons must fly through the air to reach the target. Naruto sighed, man if only I was a wind type, or even knew how to be one. Then Tenten would have been done for. He laughed to himself at the thought of a chibi Tenten throwing stuff at him and Naruto just lifting one hand and blowing it away like paper. He kept reading through styles such as puppeteering, which sounded cool but they were all from Sunagaker, and Naruto couldn't even find that place on an unlabeled map, let alone actually know someone from there, so no dice whatsoever there. He read about Sensor Ninja, a type of ninja able to detect the presence of others through their chakra. He was pretty new at that as he couldn't really use Chakura Henkute no Jutsu, chakra echolocation jutsu, far enough for it to be effective enough to call him a proper sensor yet. He eventually lost himself in the book, jumping around and reading parts that he found cool enough to pay attention to, for the better part of an hour. Uzumaki-kun. Shiho ran back to his table with a scroll in hand. I found the scrolls you were looking for. She placed 3 scrolls on the table. This is what me and your clones worked out as what you might like to use. Naruto looked up from his book. Oh, I know. Shiho looked at him strangely. How would you know? You were here the whole time, why would you possibly know what I had done with your clones? That thought caused Naruto to pause. Why did he know? He remembered doing stuff with Shiho before climbing the bookcase to grab the scrolls at the top, it almost tipping over and Shiho screaming causing him to lose his balance and fall. That was what jumped into his head about 2 minutes ago. Shiho had a thought, I'll be right back Uzumaki-kun. While Shiho left to head back into the archives, Naruto looked over what she had left. 3 scrolls, Yawa Ashi, soft foot, Umite, long blade hand, and Nebiken, sticky fist. Yawa Ashi, soft foot, was out almost immediately when Naruto read it. Not only did the name turn him off as it made him sound like a ballerina, it didn't seem like his kind of style. It revolved around using your legs for feints and neglecting the use of your hands to deal damage in exchange for kicks. The hands were never used, even when it came to blocking. Head movement and simply being elusive were the touted defenses of the style. It required good coordination and fast feet. Naruto didn't even know how to train to get fast feet and he tripped on his own feet walking down the street from time to time. He wasn't too coordinated. Umite, long blade hand, was a cool concept, but the practice turned Naruto off from learning it. It required you to build up the hardness of the tips of your fingers and the knife edge of your hand for powerful chops and straight hand thrusts that could be shoved right through an opponent. It sounded cool in practice, but the training to get your hands that strong in the first place, however, was to repeatedly break your fingertips and pinky side of your hand enough times while learning the strikes that the bones would calcify and harden over time to increase hardness. The only good thing about that style to Naruto was that he would have to drink more milk. The last style hooked him in. Nebiken, Sticky Fist, went right along with what he had caught notice of in the Academy Taijutsu text of advanced grappling. It basically compounded on what to do after you had trapped a limb on your opponent. After grabbing an enemy's arm or leg, you would either pull them in and deliver shockingly powerful punches, forearm and elbow strikes, knees, shoulder shots, headbutts, and short joint attacks powered by physical strength and momentum to disable your opponent and keep them close or keep them literally at arm's reach and pick apart their open defenses with fast looping kicks. It was also the simplest to train. All it required was someone willing to take a beating in order to learn its nuances due to how close one had to remain to an opponent to launch attacks and willing partners to be training dummies. Naruto had an abundance of both, as this fit in best with his take 3 to give 1 brawling style, and he had Kage Bunshin to beat on for as long as he needed. Naruto's head snapped up suddenly. Shiho-chan, what was that all about? You've got to be joking. He cried suddenly. He left his book and scrolls on the table and rushed through the archives to find Shiho standing with a smile on her face. Naruto dropped to his knees in front of her. Please tell me you're joking, Shiho-chan. I can't afford that. Shiho was fighting hard to keep from laughing out loud. I can't afford a 30,000 ryo fee for library use. Shiho broke down and started laughing. I'm sorry, Uzumaki-kun, it was a joke. But it did end up proving my theory right. How did you know I said that? I was all the way over here. You told my clone, didn't you? Naruto said plainly, as if it was unimportant. Shiho just stood there counting the seconds until it hit him what he had just said, and realizing that him being his years dead last might not be so unfounded. Wait, you told my clone. How did I know about it? Shish. Shiho said, trying to settle him down. I don't know, but you obviously get your clone's memories after they get dispelled. Do you know what this means? Naruto shook his head and a shine reflected off of the girl's glasses. You could read like 7 books at once as long as you use you clones and still get the information they got from it. Naruto's face lit up. So I can make my clones read these books while I train and do actual cool stuff. Shiho nodded. Yada. Shish. The sounds of others audibly shushing Naruto erupted from all around the library, breaking Shiho into a mess of giggles as Naruto apologized quietly. Make some more of those Kage Bunshin, Uzumaki-kun. There's so much you need to know before you become an active ninja. You won't be a dead last by the time I'm through with you. Shiho grabbed onto Naruto's wrist and swiftly dragged him through different aisles, loading him up with books. He had to wonder what part of her wasn't conditioned to be a field ninja, because she was dragging him and half a dozen books around the place like they were weightless. Naruto had been frequenting the library pretty much every day with a few clones. He wanted to make enough to fill the library with them, but both Atsuto and Shiho weren't going to tolerate a library full of Narutos when only one was more than enough to raise a ruckus and cause a disturbance, thus forcing him to keep the clones at a minimum, usually around 6. Naruto pitied his clones. Shiho had them reading the books she picked out to help him along in his knowledge as a shinobi. She was a nice enough girl, but reading was still ultra boring. Not even a new friend could make him think otherwise. She didn't even have him learning cool stuff like he wanted. After she realized how much basic knowledge he lacked, Shiho saw to it that she drilled something into his head to make sure that it stuck, and her sensei didn't have any problems with her doing that, especially since she had Naruto's clones helping out keeping the place organized. By the end of the week, one of the things drilled into his head was how to replace books and scrolls that other shinobi had checked out and returned. Naruto's clones went over basic tactics and combat strategies, yes, at least things that Shiho thought a genin needed to know anyway. In addition to that, she introduced him to the immediate geography of Hinokuni and its surrounding nations so that he didn't look a complete horse's ass when he went outside of the country on missions. While Naruto's clones suffered indoors, he took his business to the woods where he would go over his taijutsu. His choice of using Nebiken, Sticky Fist, seemed like the most tailor-made for him at the moment, but he had to make sure his taijutsu was decent enough for it to even work. This led to him doing the thing from the other day, working with his clones to trap melee attacks like the Academy Scroll instructed him, as he realized it wasn't in the other one due to it being an intermediate scroll. He would have skipped straight to learning the new style if he hadn't been training his moves in the exact place he had been trying to the other day, where he once again ran into Tenten, this time with some kid with long brown hair and white eyes. Naruto didn't like that guy straight from the first meeting, as he looked at him like he was stupid when he told Tenten what he had been doing when she found him again. Tenten quickly informed him that he should finish learning what the Academy Scroll had to teach him before anything else. When he got all haughty and asked her how she knew, she just gave him a deadpan look and asked him if he wanted her to go get Rock Lee or someone worse. Naruto politely declined that offer and took her word for it for two reasons. She already proved she could beat him, so what could it hurt to actually listen to someone that proved they were stronger than him? And he didn't even feel like seeing Lee so soon after getting dropkicked in the face. He sure as hell didn't want to see someone that Tenten labeled as worse. She had a point as well that she had the benevolence to explain to put it in perspective for him. Naruto could start from the Nebiken scroll and master every little thing on it. It wouldn't do him any good knowing all of the slick techniques available after latching onto an opponent if he couldn't even get a hold of them in the first place. After an interrupting grunt from the guy that Naruto assumed was her teammate as well as Lee, Tenten ran off, leaving Naruto to his own devices once more. The problem was that Naruto's taijutsu wasn't necessarily bad per se. The issue was that when the spars in class started a few years back, Naruto kind of dominated. It was the only thing he was really good at when they began. He never really had to study for the entire year because he was always able to outlast his opponents and wear them down for a win. Everyone else kept getting better and learning technique while Naruto coasted on his laurels for as long as he possibly could in the category, since he hit just as hard if not harder than anyone else and could take 10 times the damage others could before calling it quits. And he wound up coasting all the way to graduation in this case, as it was his one saving grace on his grades. He wasn't really bad in practice, when you factor in how much punishment he could take before dropping, but take that away and he would have failed that too. Good thing he was so damn stubborn, huh? Nevertheless, he was still taking punch after punch from his own Kage Bunshin. He was simply having trouble getting the timing aspect of catching an attack down. The clone doing the punching was absolutely loving his job for the day as well. Naruto had been at this for 4 days at this point, between the reading and messing around with his echolocation jutsu, and while there had been improvement, today you'd have thought it was his first day. Grinning wildly as his fist connected with his creator's face once more. He let the original get settled again before gleefully throwing another punch. However, this one was caught at the wrist before a return fist dispelled the clone. Naruto panted as his Kage Bunshin disappeared in a puff of smoke. He rubbed his sore, bruised face. Finally, he laughed to himself. I got one, I got one, I got one, I finally got one. He winced at a particular stinging part of his face. It took long enough, damn it. He didn't know why it was so hard, but the reason was that his clones knew how he would try to trap a limb. They altered their punch and kick style to keep him from ever getting a hold of them. So it wasn't really that he was doing it wrong, he was simply not adept enough at it to take on an opponent that knew what he was going to do. Man, I have to get that ID picture taken today. Naruto picked himself back up off of the ground. I hope these marks go away before I get there. Naruto decided that the best way to train was to work his taijutsu, which would work his Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Shadow Clone Jutsu, at the same time, and he would also release random bursts of Chakura Henkute no Jutsu, Chakra Echolocation Jutsu, as a short break. Uruka said it placed a decent drain on him to use it, but so far Naruto wasn't feeling it. Naruto placed his hands in the ram seal to begin charging the pulse, Chakura Henkute no Jutsu, Chakra Echolocation Jutsu. Naruto let loose the jutsu only to hear a sharp cry of pain from a decent distance away. What? Naruto looked around himself before taking off in the only direction that he felt anything big enough to be a person. Who's there? I know you're over here. He arrived at the place where he felt the presence and saw no one. Someone's messing with me. Naruto fired up another sonar pulse and felt the person quickly leaving the area. He felt like chasing after them, but he had things to do, and if they hadn't attacked him when he revealed that he knew where they were, they must not have been dangerous, right? Besides that, once they reached a populated area, he wouldn't have been able to pursue any further. He had trouble pinpointing exact people in decent crowds. With that thought in mind, Naruto headed off towards the Hokage Tower to get his ninja ID picture taken. Hinata finally stopped running once she finally reached the village itself. She had found Naruto and decided to follow him to see what he had been doing. Seeing him fail obviously hurt him, and she wanted to know if he was okay. Her surprise was immense when she saw him make a physically solid clone that could actually fight, and she almost yelled out for him to stop once she saw it start beating on him. Only after a few tries, when she saw him actively trying to counter by catching its punches and kicks, did she realize it was training. Did she relax and simply watch with her Byakugan active so that she didn't have to move. She watched right up until the point where he let off that weird pulse of chakra. A spherical wave of chakra expanded outward from Naruto's body, and she sure as hell wasn't ready for something like that from him. From her point of view, when it hit her eyes, it felt like the strongest camera flash she had ever felt in her life, and she had to cry out in unexpected pain at the sensation, which tipped Naruto off to her presence. From there she simply ran away as fast as she could, lest he find her and actually ask her embarrassing questions on what exactly she had been doing there. She nervously activated her Byakugan again to ensure that Naruto wasn't near her again, and once satisfied with that, went on her own way, still somewhat shaken by her close call of being discovered by her object of admiration. Naruto cursed his revamped schedule as he walked away from the Hokage's office. He intended to do something awesome for his ID photo, but with all of the stuff he had been doing, he simply didn't have the time to set it up in time for his appointment. It was nice to see the old man smile at him and compliment him, thinking he was starting to take things seriously, but he would have rather had the fallout that would have occurred if he had done something outrageous instead. Oh well, there was always another day. As Naruto walked through the hall to exit the tower, a small boy ran into his knees. Naruto looked down and frowned. Hey kid, watch where you're going. And what are you doing running around with that shuriken in your hand? The boy was wearing a yellow shirt with the Konoha symbol on it, gray shorts, a long blue scarf, and a gray helmet with a hole out the top for a tuft of hair to stick out of. He looked up at Naruto with a glare. You tripped me. Naruto got an angry look on his face. You tripped over your own feet and ran into me, clumsy. Don't blame me for your lack of balance. With that, Naruto walked past him and down the stairs to leave the building. As he kept walking, the boy ran out and stopped at the top of the stairs. Don't you know who I am? I'm the Hokage's grandson. Apologize to me. Naruto scoffed and didn't even turn his head. The Hokage himself only gets me to do stuff because I actually respect him, because he earned it. If you want me to apologize to a brat like you, you'd be better off trying to make me yourself with action, because being his grandson doesn't mean anything in reality. After saying that, Naruto hid his hands from clear view as he let out a pulse of his jutsu, allowing him to feel the shuriken that the boy threw. Naruto simply stepped to the side and let it fly past him. You'd better watch out with that thing, you might hurt somebody. The boy simply stared at him in awe until he disappeared from sight at the bottom of the stairs. A man with a dark long-sleeved shirt and dark pants wearing his headband to cover his entire head like a bandana came up behind the boy, adjusting the sunglasses on his face. Honorable grandson, there you are. You shouldn't run away like that, not while in the midst of my lecture. You do want to be a powerful shinobi one day, don't you? He then noticed that the boy wasn't paying attention to him and was looking down the stairs. What do you see? The boy just kept on staring. Who was that guy? He asked more to himself than to anyone else. Naruto stood right behind a corner at the bottom of the stairs with a wide grin on his face. I love that jutsu so much. Oh man, that probably looked so badass. I wish I had made a Kage Bunshin to let me know what it looked like. Naruto shut his eyes and walked away grinning until he himself bumped into a solid figure. When he opened his eyes and looked up, a plume of smoke greeted his face, forcing him to cough and hack somewhat. Naruto cleared the tears gathering in his eyes from the smoke and saw a man with brown eyes, short spiky black hair, a beard, and his headband around his head with a cigarette in his mouth. He wore the stuff he saw a lot of Konoha ninja wearing, the black long-sleeved shirt, the black pants, and that vest with the pouches on the chest. He also had a strange sash with the kanji for fire on it. Sorry there, kid. Naruto stopped rubbing his eyes. Why are you apologizing to me? He really wasn't used to this. People didn't apologize to him. As a matter of fact, most adults glared at him if they even bothered acknowledging he was even there at all after something like this. Not this guy though, I was the one that ran into you. The man had a calm smile on his face as he answered, well, sometimes you've got to remember that kids younger than you are prone to accidents and the like, just like ignorant people are going to do ignorant things. There's no need to try and look cool all of the time, you see. Cool just happens, you can't manipulate it. Naruto blanched, thinking the man might have taken offense to what had just happened between him and that kid. So, you saw what just happened? The man nodded. Naruto's train of thought then shifted. Hey, what are you talking about? That was cool. The man shook his head and took another drag of his cigarette. Nah, like I said, cool just happens. You just graduate the academy. Naruto blinked before grinning at the man. Whoever this was certainly was getting on Naruto's good list. He hadn't been condescending or an outright asshole to him once yet. Yeah. I actually have to show up for orientation tomorrow. Why? The man took on a thoughtful look. So what have you been doing for the week? Naruto was about to open his mouth and go into full, colorful detail about just what he had been doing, from learning both of his new jutsu, to the people he met, to the fight against Tenten that he was going to edit down substantially to fit his own ego, of course, when a lesson learned hit him from Shiho's brutal method of force-feeding his Kage Bunshin information. Information is one of the most useful tools at a shinobi's disposal. Even simple information such as a person's day-to-day life or events that have transpired in the past, ranging back decades in some cases, can be a powerful weapon to be used one way or another, either as a point of leverage or a talking point in somewhat hostile negotiations. Naruto shut his mouth and rubbed the back of his head. Just stuff, hey. Trying to keep busy. He so wanted to tell this guy about his Kage Bunshin, or about Iruka's echolocation jutsu that he used so much, or anything, but the sooner he could put some lessons to practice the better things would be in the long run, or so Shiho had said when his clones griped. The man chuckled and walked on past Naruto, heading up the stairs and leaving him alone. Naruto looked at where the man had been for a moment before moving along his own way. The bearded man walked through the halls until he finally reached the office of the Hokage. He knocked on the door and opened it up to walk on in. Hiruzen looked up and smiled. "Ah, Asuma. What can I do for you today?" Asuma stood in front his desk and spoke with the cigarette in his mouth. "Hey Dad, you know how you sent out requests for teams?" Hiruzen nodded. "Well, I've got one request that should be easy enough. I'm sure there won't really be anyone else jumping at the chance to take him." Hiruzen's eyebrow rose in curiosity upon hearing Asuma begin to make a request. He never requested anything. Naruto just couldn't shake the feeling of someone following him as he walked the streets of the village, sending out regular pulses of Iruka's jutsu, that he was starting to like just as much as turning his head to look for things with his eyes. It took basically the same amount of effort. He noticed that there was something following him, but he just didn't feel like turning around to see what it was. It hadn't tried anything yet and he was hungry. Whatever it was could wait until he got to Ichiraku Ramen. "If you're still following me when I get to the ramen stand, I'm going to have to mess you up," Naruto shouted to whoever was following him. After walking a few blocks and another check to see if he was still being followed, he shook his head. Just as he entered the stand underneath the curtain, he formed a cage bunchen that made itself scarce before anyone that cared could take notice. Taking his seat at the counter, Naruto immediately called out his order. "Oi, Tsukioji, one large serving of miso ramen with roasted pork fillet and keep him coming." The middle-aged man running the stand gave Naruto a half salute and got to work on his order. "You've got it, Naruto. Coming right up." Ayame leaned on the counter while Naruto waited on his food. "So Naruto-kun, tomorrow right? That's the day you become a ninja." Naruto laughed to himself. "Yep, I can't wait. I'm so excited I don't know how I'm going to sleep tonight. I'm going to kick so much ass tomorrow, it's going to be great." His attention was directed downward as a large, steaming bowl of ramen with the works was placed in front of him. Naruto grabbed a pair of chopsticks and broke them apart. "Itadakimasu." The blonde stopped the chopsticks full of noodles just short of his mouth as the memories of his cage bunchen and his little stalker came into mind. With Naruto's cage bunchen, across the street from the stand, the cage bunchen stood with a sweat drop on its head as it stared at a square rock, looking intently at the real him eating at the stand. Naruto kicked at the rock twice and deepened his sweat drop when it scuttled away from him a few feet before continuing to watch the real him. "Rocks aren't square," Naruto said absently. Upon hearing his voice, the rock abruptly turned around before being thrown off to reveal the little kid he had met at the Hokage Tower earlier. "Why have you been following me for so long? Can't you see it's chow time?" The kid pointed at the clone with a shaky, accusing finger. How can you be over here? You're supposed to be over there. I heard you yell from over there. You're not real, ow." The clone rapped the boy on the head. "Well, you said ouch, so I must be real enough, right?" He stared at Naruto in awe. "How did you do that?" Naruto grinned widely at him. "I'm a ninja kid. Pretty cool, huh?" The boy then got a determined look in his eyes. "Alright then, I've decided. You're going to train me now, boss." The clone almost face faulted itself into oblivion. "What? Who decided? Why would I want to train you? And what's with the boss stuff? I'm calling you boss because you're going to be training me, and I've decided on you because, well, you're awesome, boss, and this thing with the making two of you as well as being able to discover my location just proves it, core." The clone blushed under the praise before sighing once he thought of the kid being impressed at noticing a square rock was out of place in the middle of a street. "Yeah, whatever, kid. I don't even know your name, so it's going to be kind of hard for whatever training you think I can give you. Besides, don't you have a teacher already?" "Konohamaru." The boy mumbled, facing the ground. "My name is Konohamaru." His head snapped up abruptly. "But no one ever calls me that. It's always, honorable grandson." even though my name should be easy to remember. No one ever sees me for me, they only just see me for the things that my grandfather did. I want people to acknowledge me. Naruto frowned as he heard the boy explain himself to him. It was kind of like him. People seemed to prefer to pretend that he simply didn't exist and he had no clue why. At least Konohamaru had the luxury of already knowing what it was they saw when they treated him that way, and it wasn't so negative. Still, the kid strangely reminded him on himself, especially at that age. He wished he had the balls to go up to someone and ask them to train him though. Alright, clone Naruto sighed, but there's not really anything I can teach you. He scratched his head. Well, there's one thing. It could work for you and it seems to be effective on most of the people I use it on. The clone thought to himself, boss doesn't need to actually go do this himself, does he? Well, Konohamaru asked excitedly once he realized that Naruto was going to teach him something. Naruto patted the boy on the head. Alright. The jutsu I'm going to teach you requires you to do quite a bit of studying. Come on, let's get started. With Naruto, that didn't really work out so well for Naruto's Kage Bunshin. Naruto sighed and made a bunch of Kage Bunshin. Go with a kid and stay hidden except for one in case you get dispelled again, this might be a really long day. The clone saluted him and took off towards Konohamaru's last location to make sure the kid wasn't freaking out at watching his instructor for the day burst into smoke. Naruto took in a sigh of relief and inhaled the aroma of the new bowl that Ayame had just set in front of him. There is no way I was going to be stuck doing that all day. Stuck doing what, Naruto-kun? Ayame asked curiously. He seemed really comforted about something. Naruto laughed and gave her a megawatt smile. Nothing, Ayame-nichan, I'm just talking to myself. The next day, Naruto arrived to the academy super early that morning and sat down before sighing to himself and pulling out a bunch of small sticky notes that Shiho made his Kage Bunshin write down and carry home before they dispelled. Yesterday had been very troublesome for the existence of realistic replications if the way his Kage Bunshin had to deal with the stuff happening around them was any indication. Konohamaru's attempts to go through with research for the jutsu Naruto planned on teaching him ended up in pain and anguish for Naruto's clones, even though it was always Konohamaru that got them in trouble. Maybe teaching a kid the Oroku no Jutsu wasn't the best idea in the first place. Anyway, Konohamaru eventually got it just in time for his instructor Ebisu to show up and take him away. Flashback. Honorable grandson, it's time for you to stop associating with this rabble and come with me. Ebisu said, tilting his glasses up as he looked down on Naruto coldly from a tree limb. Naruto returned his look with a glare of his own. Guys like this are always looking at me like they have a problem. What is their deal? I don't even know who this guy is and he looks like he's trying to set me on fire with his eyes. No. Konohamaru shouted, I want to go with Naruto. I actually learned something today. Check it out. Oroku no Jutsu, sexy jutsu. In a puff of smoke, Konohamaru turned into a beautiful brunette woman that winked at Ebisu. Hey there, how do you like my jutsu? Naruto smirked to himself. He had actually gotten it down after just a few hours of practice. Ebisu on the other hand was mortified. Honorable grandson, what kind of deplorable acts have you been coerced into by this ruffian? This jutsu is far below someone of your stature. The only guaranteed way to achieve a shortcut to Hokage is through my teachings. I'll show you the way. Naruto growled, Oi, can you forget the damn way that he looked for a second and think about what the kid just did? Ebisu stopped pulling on Konohamaru and looked at Naruto, who he had expected to say something at any minute, just not something like that. He expected a challenge to fight or something. But hearing this boy perceived as a dead last have anything to say to him irked his ire. Oh, and what would that be, besides making himself a public nuisance and besmirching his name in your tasteless influence? Naruto's eye twitched. He so wanted to fight this guy and show him what was what, but he promised too many people he'd stop acting like a bother and getting into a fight with another person so soon after being scolded for it wouldn't bode too well for him. Naruto grit his teeth and continued to speak. He did a transformation, you idiot. Was all he really had the self-control to get out. Ebisu looked at Naruto expectantly, as if to say, that's all you had to say. It took a few seconds, but the facts of what he had just uttered had finally dawned on Ebisu as his eyes slowly panned down to Konohamaru, still trying to break his grip. After realizing that Konohamaru had indeed used a jutsu that he hadn't even come close to teaching him, yet he let go of the young boy in shock. Honorable grandson, this is incredible. To learn such a jutsu in one day. Naruto wanted to yell at this guy so much for changing his tune so abruptly. Of course it only took a day. Konohamaru bellowed before running back over to Naruto. Boss taught it to me. Naruto patted Konohamaru on the head. Yeah, but now you can use it to turn into other stuff. All you need are the hand seals now, since you already get the idea of turning into a different form. He pointed to Ebisu. That guy can do that for you later. Konohamaru frowned as he looked over at Ebisu. But boss, he doesn't teach me any cool jutsus like you do. How am I supposed to get to be Hokage fast if I don't learn any jutsu? You idiot, Naruto said. There isn't a shortcut. Nothing you do will make the way to Hokage any shorter or any easier. If you really want to be Hokage one day, you're going to have to prove that you're better than me. Konohamaru gulped at that. You need a lot of guts, and you're going to fall down a lot, but if you work your hardest one day you can be Hokage, after me of course. Konohamaru stared at Naruto as he started walking away from both him and Ebisu. Fine, you're not my teacher anymore. From now on we're rivals. Naruto chuckled and waved absently over his shoulder. Yeah, fine. I couldn't keep teaching you stuff anyway. I have to start my ninja career tomorrow. End flashback. And then there were the clones that had been combing through the library for anything with a jutsu in it. The old man couldn't have been lying when he said that there were a few in there somewhere. He wouldn't have done that, but he would be damned if he had found any yet, because he sure hadn't. And whenever the clones came across anything that Shiho thought he would need, she pulled that particular clone away from searching and proceeded to make it read whatever it was. She kept on claiming seniority over him to get the clones to read what she told them to, and accentuated the fact that he would have to learn how to take orders he didn't like, so he might as well get used to it. 4 clones. Better them than him though. Hey. Naruto looked up to see a boy with black hair and a ponytail giving him a pineapple look, looking at him lazily. What are you doing here, Naruto? This is for students that graduated. Naruto flicked the metal on his headband around his forehead. He still wore the goggles as well, just around his neck. He might need them at some point, so why not? You see the headband, Shikamaru? That means I'm a ninja just like you. Troublesome. Shikamaru rubbed his neck before going off to find his own seat, leaving Naruto back to his own devices. Hinata's breath hitched in her throat when she saw Naruto sitting in class. Naruto-kun passed after all. I'm so glad. However, she still really hoped that he hadn't caught on to her tailing him the other day. Ha! Take that, Ino pig, I got here first. Naruto turned his attention to the top of the stairs where he saw an out-of-breath Sakura and Ino. Sakura looked down to his level and put on a sweet face. No way, is she looking at me like that? When Sakura began moving his way, he took a chance that he probably knew the results of beforehand, standing up to greet her. Hi there, Sakura-chan. Get out of the way, Naruto. Sakura bowled him over and moved directly to the seat beside him. Good morning, Sasuke-kun. She pleasantly greeted the boy in question seated directly to her left. Naruto picked himself up off of the ground as a bunch of the girls in class began fighting over who was going to take that seat. What the hell was that for? Shiho says being nice to girls will get them to like you, and she hasn't hit me once all week. Sigh, I just don't get girls. Naruto leered over at the object of all of the commotion, one Sasuke Uchiha. Naruto smirked to himself. It was only a matter of time at this point until he could go and prove that he was better than Sasuke was. Let Mr. Popularity there enjoy his last day as top dog. Once things got going, Naruto would be the one seen as the best. With that in mind, Naruto took his seat and went back over the notes that he had placed in front of him on the desk with much trouble to his attention span due to the harping on by all of the girls around Sasuke. Seriously, how could that bastard keep a stone face in the middle of that? He had to have nerves like a river stone to not let it show that it was bothering him one way or another. What are you doing, Naruto? He looked up to see a boy in a hooded parka with fur lining the edges. He had red marks on his cheeks, rather feral features, and a little white puppy on top of his head. Why are you studying? That's kind of the opposite of what you should be doing here. School's over now. Naruto chuckled nervously. Well, a friend of mine just wanted me to go over some stuff that was supposed to help me out. Nothing big. How was he supposed to say he had clones running about the library every day this week going over things? That would have probably made him a laughingstock. Kiba grinned, showing off sharp canines. Well, you can study all you want to, it doesn't matter. Me and Akamaru are going to blow right past you, whatever it is they have us doing now. Right, boy. A yap of affirmation from the puppy on his head sounded out. Naruto stood up out of his seat and held up a fist. Yeah, right. I'm going to get out of here and hit the top in record time. Then you can all tell your children one day how you were in class with the new Hokage, heh. They don't let class dobes be Hokage. One random boy shouted out, engulfing the whole room in laughter. Shut up. Naruto barked back. I could probably beat anyone in this room right now. Could he? Yeah, he could. He knew none of these guys were as good as Tenten was. He had been training all week and he was sure no one else had done anything. And he was Uzumaki Naruto, he was that awesome. Of course he could. None of that stuff is going to matter once we get out of here and the missions start. We're all genin now. Well said, Naruto. Iruka said as he entered the room with a clipboard. You're all as of this day forward official shinobi of Konohagakure no Sato. You are all expected to carry out your missions to the best of your ability for your home and for your comrades. I just want to say that I am proud of you all and that I wish you all luck in your future as ninja and kunoichi of our village. He gave his short speech a moment to sink in before clearing his throat. Now I'm going to begin the announcement of the squads formed for the duration of your tenure as genin. This got everyone in attendance's collective attention. All of the would-be Junin sensei were in the office of the Hokage looking through his crystal ball at all of the rookies. Hiruzen looked at Asuma, who had foregone the cigarettes due to the room being so crowded. Is there any particular reason you asked for the addendum to your team, Asuma? Asuma smirked when all eyes fell on him, trying to put me on the spot, Dad. Alright, I'll explain it afterwards. Iruka continued listing off names on his clipboard. Team 7 will be Akamichi Choji, Haruno Sakura, and Uchiha Sasuke. Your instructor will be Hatake Kakashi. Shanaru. Sakura exclaimed after hearing her team. Take that, Ino pig. True love conquerors all. Ino placed her cheek in her hand in a dejected fashion while Sakura continued to celebrate. Sakura turned to Sasuke with hearts in her eyes. Now we'll be on the same team, Sasuke-kun, isn't that great? Was the stoic Genin's response. Naruto had to bite back a snort of laughter at that. It was clear that Sasuke cared so much about his predicament. Team 8 will be Hyuga Hinata, Inuzuka Kiba, and Aburame Shino with Yuhi Kurenai as your Junin sensei. Iruka said as the three young ninja mentioned all acknowledged that he had been heard. Team 9 is still in circulation, so we'll move on to Team 10. Team 10 will be Yamanaka Ino, Nara Shikamaru, and Uzumaki Naruto with Sarutobi Asuma. Ah, Ino said as her head slumped onto the desk, I've got a lazy bum and the dead last on my team, why me? Naruto rolled his eyes at Ino's words and kept his eyes on Shiho's notes. Why did she give me these? The only thing that's been useful so far was the one that told me we were going to be broken up into squads like all genin were. Other than that, these have been a waste of time. And that's all for now. Uruka concluded, you will all be picked up by your respective Junin sensei after lunch. Until then, get together with your team, get to know them, and one more time, good luck to all of you. Uruka spared the class one last glance before leaving the students on their own. Naruto picked up his notes and stuck them inside of his jacket just as Ino came down from her seat behind him with her hands on her hips. Alright, you and Shikamaru are coming with me. Troublesome, Shikamaru said before pointing his thumb in a direction. What about Choji? What about him? Ino asked, still sounding short-tempered about how the teams panned out. Shikamaru and Naruto both pointed towards the door where Sasuke walked out, being audibly trailed by Sakura trying to curry his favor as they were now a team. Do you really think he's going to be welcome eating lunch with them? The lazy boy said before motioning Choji down closer towards where they were. Naruto spoke up. Yeah, it's alright with me. Choji can come on over, no problem. The plump boy in question took a seat next to Shikamaru before breaking out a bag of chips that he began to snack on. Naruto looked at a slightly fuming Ino, and Shikamaru, who had both of his eyes closed as he leaned back in his chair. So I guess we're teammates now, huh? He said with a slight laugh, losing it when Ino glared at him. Alright, it's pretty simple why I chose Naruto to round out the team instead of going with Choji in the end. Asuma said, while he's not really smart, I think that Shikamaru is hiding a major brain somewhere, so he'll be the intelligence. Ino is bossy enough to keep both of them in line. And Naruto is going to show more than enough effort during actual training to inspire the other two to improve. Besides, with a Nara to hold opponents in place, I'm sure that the kid is going to have some knockout power to him sooner rather than later. Here's inside. You know Kakashi wanted him for his own squad, right? Asuma smirked and placed a cigarette in his mouth. And where is he again? All of the other Junin in the room snickered quietly when it was clear that he wasn't there at the time. Oi, Kurenai. The bearded man said when his cigarette was snatched from his mouth by a stunning raven-haired woman with striking red eyes. Kurenai tossed the cigarette aside. But to take him onto your team. Aren't you a bit concerned about the you-know-what? Asuma shrugged. Why should I be? Has anyone ever even heard of any episodes taking place with the kid? Ever. At this point he might as well not even have it for all of the influence it has over him. He's going to work out just fine on my team, I know he will. Nodding at the points his son made, Hiruzen then gave a knowing smirk. I believe Naruto-kun is going to have a few surprises for you already in regards to his performance on your team. It's been a week. A random shinobi said. He was the dead last of this year's graduates. How much could things have changed in a week? A week. Hiruzen thought. Try 24 hours. He looked at the man that had spoken with an even gaze. A week is far more than an ample amount of time for any competent shinobi to improve if driven. And I can assure you that Naruto-kun has an incredible drive. And that's why I wanted him. Asuma said before placing another cigarette in his mouth, making sure to keep it away from Kurenai.